We love old cemeteries and churchyards, so come with us as we explore these places for the past. Today we are in the small historic Fife coastal village of Elie, and small historic village means amazing graveyard usually, but first of all let's have a look at their amazing war memorial. And what's amazing about it, apart from the list of names, is the fact that every name, or almost every name, has got his profession written down next to it. So there is Affleck William G, who was an accountant in the bank, and there's John Anstruther, who was a captain in the Carabiners, and there is John Dunsire, who's a chauffeur. You get the idea. There's chauffeurs and there's ploughmen and joiners and clubmakers and postmen and all sorts. I think that's a really nice touch. That's not really something that we've seen anywhere else. Anyway, so that is the War Memorial. That is the Great War in 1939 to 45 on the sides. Let's go over into there and have a look at the graveyard. This is going to be a good one. All these places have amazing old cemeteries because they've all been in use for hundreds of years, so let's go and see what we can find out about this one. First thing we find out about it is it's got Commonwealth War Graves. So, there is a Commonwealth War grave. Okay, so there's not more than one. Right, let's go and read the big sign, which is always a good place to start. That there is the parish church, which is, it's not a bad start. And wait till you see some of the stones that I can see dotted about this place. This is going to be quite interesting. This church dates back to 1639, apart from the tower bit, which was added by a guy called Anstruther in the 1700s. Now, Anstruther is the name of another fishing village just along the coast a wee bit, with another very interesting looking old graveyard that I've driven past but never stopped in. So, that is a nice church, and that is a nice tower. And now let's go and look at the rather nice graveyard. Where to start? Let's start on the back of this thing over here, I think. Not a bad place to start. This is a monument to the Gillespies of Gillespie House, Elie and Kirkton and Montequeny, which I've never heard of. Must be a place round about here somewhere, because they're all from Kirkton and Montequeny. And in front of that big memorial there's this little one, which is quite good condition compared to some round here. We are at the seaside, so sandstone does not do very well. But this is in memory of John Russell, one-time tenant of Abercrombie, which is a little tiny village not far away. He died there in 1838 in one of the 3 houses that he built. So he was a house builder, and he's remembered for building houses, no matter what else he may have done. And this one, the obelisks lasted quite well. Unfortunately, the sandstone insert bits haven't. Nothing on that one, nothing on that one, and quite a lot on this one. In loving memory of James Duncan Porteous, who died 21st November 1868, aged 52, and his wife and their daughter, who died in 1865, and she's with Christ, which is far better. And these stones here, this is Sam Shane's in memory of his mother Margaret, who died in 1947. So we are a wee bitty newer with that one. This one is, it goes up to the 1940s as well, 1949 with old Agnes down there. But it goes right back to who died April, that says 1984, and his daughter who died, no it can't say, yeah it does. William Dove, who died 1874, aged 68 years, and his daughter who died 1870, no. That looks like 1904 and 1874, sorry, it's not 1984. He didn't have a time machine. And in loving memory of my dear husband Gregor James Grant, who died in 1936. It's a leaded one, so some of the lead is starting to part from the stone. So let's wander about and see what else we can find. These are all comparatively, I was going to say, these are all comparatively new, which clearly they are. That one there's 1950s, those ones are like 1950s, yeah, all comparatively new, like, yeah. Apart from that, which is probably back into the 1600s. That's an old sort of vaulted tabletop tombstone, and there's not much left on it. There is a bit of a skull going on at this end, and that means there should be something at the other end, but it's no. I suppose that was just too heavy to move when they were sorting out the graveyard. So there's a 1947, and that one is 1894, and that is Charles Major from 1953. So these are all in the 1950s with the odd really, really old bit dotted around. So let's go, there's an old looking one behind it. That is somebody who died in 1847. Can't tell from back here, let's get closer. 1867, so 1776 to 1860. Wow. That's a really good age. Old Isabella made it to 91. And over against the wall there is the remains of an old tabletop tombstone. and it says, well, it has got writing on it that is in English. A lot of the ones in here will probably be in Latin, but that says, "Here lies," and he was a mariner, but there's too much moss on it to tell what it actually is, so it's the grave of some mariner. And behind our mariner we have got Murdo Graham, who was from Calcutta. Alright, is that where he died, or is that where he was born? I don't know. Anyway, it's got Murdo Graham of Calcutta, erected by Murdo Graham of Calcutta on that one. That's quite an expensive stone in its day. And behind that Murdo from Calcutta's stone is in memory of our dear father Robert Don, who died in 1916. Yeah, so these are all still 1900s. Let's see what older stuff we can find, because I can definitely tell you there's older stuff here, because I can actually see it over there. And against the wall of the graveyard, sacred to the memory of Margaret Govan, who died at Elie in 1800 something under the moss. Right, let's keep going back this way, because here's another very old sort of slab top, vaulted slab top tombstone. Again, it's got a skull at this end. Has it got anything at the other end? Because I was wrong last time. No, so that's different to the ones that we see in other places. It has got some writing on there. It says something. I'll figure that out and I'll get back to you. Okay, I think it's just initials AF and CF. I can't really see much in the middle, but on this side it's got lots and lots of words, but they are unfortunately in the Latin. It says Cana Fidelis Probita Smentis Constantia Virtue. Okay, so it's in Latin, but it wasn't a bad guess what the Latin said. Probably sounded nothing like that when the people spoke it originally, but hey ho. And on the other side, probably more of the same, but yeah, all hidden behind the moss. This is probably Victorian, I would guess, from the draped urn thing going on top, and this is sacred to the memory of Thomas Fogo, who died at Anstruther, which is just along the coast, in December 1876, so yep, Victorian. And William Fogo, who died at Elie, which is where we are. And behind them, erected by James Syme in memory of his wife Elizabeth Cumming, who died in 1838, aged 52, and their daughter Euphemia. Oh yeah, it's always a good day when you find a Euphemia, who died February the 16th, 1831, aged 2. Another quite grand stone, and this is sacred to the memory of Thomas W.D. Bonar, a shipmaster who died in 1897, aged 71, and of his son James Bonar, who was a shipmaster as well, who died in 1881, and then George Bonar, who broke the family tradition. He wasn't a shipmaster, he was a banker. I've not seen this before. Down the bottom here there's Agnes, who's the beloved stepmother of his children. Never seen the word stepmother on a tombstone either. We are learning as we go. And on this sort of Art Deco thing, which usually says 1940s-ish, it's in loving memory of George A.S. Wood, who was a chemist, and it's 1937. And next to George, it is to the memory of Isabella Nelson, beloved wife of David Barclay Gregg, from 1938, and David himself and their son, who was also called David. That must have been quite confusing. And next to them is a really nice piece of it's all like raised relief, so it's all been carved back. Quite a lot of work. In ever loving memory of my mother, Jemima Fraser, daughter of David Fraser of Grange and Grange Hill in Elie. That's must be local houses. And widow of William Kirkcaldy of Anstruther, who died at Gillespie House, Elie, which again was the big house that they referenced on the first thing that we looked at. And William Kirkcaldy, who died at Anstruther, and their daughter Jemima, who died at Cantara. Again, it sounds quite exotic. It's not. It's a place in Elie. She was the wife of David Barclay Gregg, who is him over there. There's a church there, so we're still round the sort of side of the church, and that is Isabella Simpson, the relict, which is widow. That's one of the most important lessons we've learnt on this when we try to figure one out that said ICT. I had no idea what it meant. So Isabella Simpson, relict of Walter Ovenstone, who died in 1862, and Janet Ovenstone, wife of John Fogo, who died in 1859, and Mary Ovenstone and John Fogo. Yeah, you get the idea. Lots and lots of people. And if you want to find out what they think, you go to the Philippians chapter 4, 6 and 7th verses. There you go and check out those. On this rather weathered stone next to the Philippians people, it is in memory of William Simpson, who was a residenter. What is a residenter? I have no idea, but he did that in Elie, and he died in 1825, so we're getting a wee bit older. And Janet, his spouse, you get the feeling that the mason was going, and Janet, blah blah, hang on, we don't have space for the his, so we'll put it in a tiny little font. I love it when you see things that make you think masons have got it wrong a little bit, because it must have been quite a big job. If you're carving this, then you realise after all that much, you've got to either start again or you just hope no one notices. And behind that, this one is taunting me because you can almost make it out. So I'm going to look at the video on this later on and see if I can figure out what it's actually saying. But I think it's just the wrong side of being legible, unless you guys know any better. This obelisk has got the whole family story on it. There's James White at the top, who was a merchant in Largo, which is another village just along the coast with an amazing graveyard. And he died in 1878. And also his wife, and Mary his daughter, and George his son, and Margaret his daughter, and Archibald Dryborough, who died in 1880, obviously married to his daughter, so that'll be his son-in-law, and of Agnes, who died in 1882, and she was the relict of the above James White. As he is the only James on this stone, so his first wife died in 1847, and then down the bottom, Margaret died in 1882. That's quite cool as well. That's obviously the masons that made it, Diel and Allardyce of Lochee, wherever Lochee it may be. And I've just noticed next to them, because I don't really look where I'm going, there's two very old grave slabs, but I don't think there's anything going to be much visible on those, not on that one anyway. The one next to it looks a little bit better preserved, because it has got at the bottom our old friend, the skull, and crossbones, and then in the middle there's a shield that would have once been the sort of heraldic emblem of the family that this represents, and above that, I'm not sure. This thing here, from this angle, it looks like a boat, but I'm not sure what that actually is. It's cool. It's what it is. This stone has got an excellent old weathering and patina on it. Really quite liking this one. And this is, this is Margaret Ingalls Duncan, wife of James Kiddie, who died at Earlsferry, and Robert, their eldest son, who died at Earlsferry, and their second son, who died at Kennewee, which is another village not far from here, and also James, their third son, who died again at Earlsferry, and the youngest son, who was drowned while skating on Knocker Loch, 31st December 1892, New Year's Eve, and he went for a wee skate, and that must have been pretty horrific for the family. Right, let's start heading back the way. This is pretty well weathered. I don't imagine there'll be a great deal on it, but I could be wrong. Well, I'll call myself half wrong. It has got things on it, but there's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to figure out what that actually ever said, because it's all gone that very sandstone in the salt sort of way. That's a shame. Still, it's a very pretty object, but can't tell you who it was for or from when. Here's an international family. This is Agnes Chapman, widow of Thomas Livingston Bruce of Glasgow, and she's buried in Lisbon in Portugal. She passed from death into life, in 1898. And her daughter-in-law, Margaret Thompson, who died here at Elie, and she was the widow of Thomas Livingston Bruce, who is buried at Gibraltar. Here's another one with quite a lot of biography on it. This is erected by Robert Scott, a shipmaster from Elie, in memory of his daughters, Annabel, who died in 1854, aged 17 months, and Anne, who died in 1858, aged 12 months, and also his father, George Scott, a mariner who drowned at sea in 1841, aged 44. Likewise, his oldest brother, Alexander, who drowned at sea in 1846, and his younger brother, George, who died, didn't drown at sea. And then there's Isabella, who died in 1854, his wife Anne, and at the bottom, himself, and he also, shouldn't be laughing, I'm sorry for laughing, but is drowned at sea. That family made their living from the sea, and the sea was not very kind to them in return. And some private bits down the side. That is from 1871 right up to 1978 for Robert Euphemia Kitchen. Yeah, that's a middle name for a man, Euphemia. Never seen that before either. And there's a memory of John Grieve Esquire, who departed this life at Elie in 1862. Next to them we've got sacred to the memory of John, eldest son of William Rankin Fortune of Muir canvas, which I've never heard of, and daughters and sons and family members and things. And this one is interesting because it's still in use, and this is in living memory of Alan Jameson, who was for many years the factor of the Elie estates. The factor is like a sort of manager thing, I guess, who died in 1891, and his wife, and then their son William, who was for 51 years the factor, and he died in 1939. And over on that side they've got James Leonard Jameson, who was factor of Elie estate from 1896 till 1973. He wasn't factor between those dates, that's when he was alive. He was a factor for 50 years, so he was actually a factor for quite a good chunk of that time. And this is a rather nice wee garden of remembrance for much more recently departed people. And there is Andrew Scott Dixon, late of Hong Kong, who died in 1873, and his wife, who died in Edinburgh. But what I'm actually heading down this way for, I mean, there are some nice stones, but there's something that I spotted from over there, and it is just around this corner. So this is a metal plaque that's outside the church. I don't know why it's not in somewhere safe. Anyway, it's sacred to the beloved memory of Captain John Wood, late of Her Majesty's Indian Navy, who died in 1871, well known from his celebrated discovery of the source of the Oxus and various surveys in Sind and Central Asia when these countries were unknown to Europeans. His noble Christian character and unaffected piety, his gentleness and large-heartedness coupled with extraordinary talents endeared him to all who were privileged to know him. There you go, that's not a bad epitaph. It's a pity it's just propped up against a wall in the corner of this churchyard. And down there it's erected by his sons Major Alexander Wood, late of the Bombay Staff Corps, and Mr Charles Malcolm Wood, Chief Constable of Manchester. I love these ones that are a lot of work. They're quite easy to carve a few things into a piece of stone, but to carve all the stone back and then just leave the design standing up, that is that's a lot more work than is actually needed. But let's see what this is. This is in memory of Edith, wife of the Reverend R.H. Dunn, O.P., Minister of Elie, R.H. Dunlop, sorry, I'm an idiot. Minister of Elie, 1887 to 1907, and she died in 1919, aged 53. And also of the Reverend R.H. Robert Hamilton Dunlop, D.D., who died in 1931, aged 74. And a son who died at Toronto, Ontario on the 31st of August 1941. So yeah, that's a really nice stone. And behind that, behind the cage to keep people safe, is the Macroovy families. That's Robert Macroovy, who died at Whampoa, China in 1856. I do love the history. People from these wee villages ended up all over the world. There's two matching stones. Let's see if they are from matching people, or if whoever is selling them just sold a job lot. At peace, Alexander Findlater, widow of John Donald Alexander. Right, so Alexander is a woman. Okay, at peace, Alexander Findlater, widow of John Donald Martin of Liverpool, who died in 1924. And next to him, at peace, Maxwell Rankin Bow MBCM, who died on the 5th of March 1922. So yeah, nice stones. This is always, you don't know what to do when you see things like this, but that pillar there is departing from that gravestone. I think it's held in just now by good intentions. And this is the grave of George Warrender, born at Buckhaven in 1826 and died in Elie in 1899, and his wife and his daughter and his son. So there you go. But that's yeah, you think that would, if you put that back now, it's not going to fall off, but I don't want to touch it in case it falls off. Elie is a really nice wee place, and this is, as predicted, a really nice wee graveyard. Some of these stones are in really nice condition. There's somebody who fell asleep in 1933, Robert Kirkcaldy, and in memory of James Patterson, who died at Collinsborough, which is literally just along the road, aged 69 in 1824. And Margaret Dury, his wife, and James Patterson, their son, who died aged 36. And yeah, lots of other family members. Anything interesting? Well, they're all interesting in their own way. There's one wee stone on its own down here. That to me looks like it's had something carved on that back of it, but it's yeah, am I imagining a skull and crossbones on that? I don't know. It's definitely got a W and an R there, so that's yeah, I think that's had something quite interesting on it, but it's gone. So let's head back down and see if we can. Oh, hang on. Okay, right. His age 61. Here lays the body of William Rainkillor of Elie, who departed this life May the 1755. Okay, I thought that was going to be not an interesting gravestone. It's turned out to be probably the most interesting gravestone in the place. And do you think, again, that it says his age 61 up there? Because whoever was carving it forgot to put it down here, or was going like, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine, and then got to the crossbones. I wonder if that's actually an older stone, something much older that's been repurposed. But it's, yeah, his age 61 should be down at the bottom, I think. The wall of the church has got stones set into it. That is Reverend Wright DD, late of Dalkeith, which is over beside Edinburgh, and that's from 1886. And further along here we've got the Reverend Hillhouse, for 20 odd years minister of this parish, who died in 1914, is that? Age 75. And then there's John Fleming Berwick, Liberty Life, died 1904. Right, okay, let's keep going round this way. It's quite a nice wee churchyard. As I may have mentioned, I do like these places. I used to come to them and wander about, but now I come to them and talk to you guys, which does make it a bit more interesting, because I have to do a bit more looking at what's actually in front of me. There's another Reverend, George Milligan DD, and then Frederick Patterson from Bothwell, Tasmania, who died at sea near Aden in 1860 on the passage home from Australia, and Jean Harley Milligan, his widow, who died at Leamington, which is down in England. That's quite interesting. I know names are not always like specific to genders, I get that, but in memory of Charles Fox Cantona, who was the wife of James Smith, so again Charles was a lady, shipmaster, who died at Elie 25th of March 1872, aged 67. Her end was peace, also of James Smith, above named, who died August the 15th, 1876, aged 77. Right, and I've just seen something on the wall behind me that got me going geek a little bit, because look at that. That is an old slab that's been put into the wall of the church, and there is the winged cherub, and then it says TTIA, and the family crest is a bull's head and a chevron and a circle. Should be able to look that up and find out who that is. And then there is there's writing on it, which is let's have a look. Yeah, that is that's in Latin. That is yeah, pace et something. Yeah, that's at this point I'm going to have to learn Latin. Some really nice monuments at this bit. This is close to the church. This is probably like a more high status, high prestige place to be buried. There's Mary Ann Wilson, wife of George Riddle AM. That has got nothing on that side, so the carving, or that side, this is really exciting television. There we go. In memory of George Riddle AM, parish schoolmaster at Inverary for 20 years, in Elie for 20 years, who died at Elie in 1869. Right, and wait till you see this. I just saw something when I was showing you that you might have noticed in the background, but look at that guy. That is amazing. I have never ever seen anything like that before on the wall of a church. We've got our hourglass at the top, and then we've got a skeleton with a covering over him, and if you go down to the bottom, there's his little tootsies there, so you can tickle the skeleton's feet if you want. Is this all in Latin as well? I'm guessing it probably is. Yeah, it's this yeah, QU something something is not sounding like English, so, but look at that. That is just I absolutely did not expect to see that. That is so cool. You, my friend, are so cool. And stuck away round the corner, this is sacred to the memory of Robert Kilgour, late parish schoolmaster of Elie, who died in 1847, but he's kind of out of the way around here. And has that one got anything on it you can see? Loving memory of Samuel Rumsey. Yeah, can't really see much on that apart from the Masonic thing at the top. And I walked right past that on the way around to see the schoolmaster, and that's another tabletop tombstone, a vaulted top. That is so cool. There's so many cool things here. Anything left on it that you can see apart from obviously the skull, which is down there? Apart from that, it's all covered in moss. I think there is some writing on this side, but I don't think you can see very much of it. No, you can't see very much of that at all. But that's another impressive slab of rock. Anyway, we are trying to get up here because we have to get on. So there's your slab of rock and the schoolmaster, but again I keep seeing things and then like zipping about. I'm not being very organised. I'm sure I'm probably missing quite a lot. I'm also getting quite a lot, so swings and roundabouts. That would be a skull and some crossbones, and yeah, that's a really cool tombstone as well. And down the bottom end we've got the heraldic shield there for the family, whoever it was, and then there's the hourglass. Oh wow, look at that. That's a heart. I've not seen the heart and the hourglass and the skull and everything on the same tombstone before. Some places you get the heart and crossbones instead of the skull and crossbones, but here you've got a heart, an hourglass and a skull and crossbones, so that has got everything going on, that one. A lot of this looks newer, but I think it's probably just better quality. That is James Mordell SSC from Edinburgh, interred at the Dean Cemetery in Edinburgh. We were definitely going one day in 1929. And on Agnes Moore, wife of John Doll of Elie, who's 1881, died 1899. Okay, so that's too difficult to read and I'm starting to sound like I'm just gibbering, so let's push on this way and see what we can see. Right, let's keep down this way because there is a war grave, singular, here somewhere, so let's go and see if we can find that. It's quite strange when you walk about here looking for the oldest bits. You start to get a grip on the iconography and the symbolism and stuff, because some of the ones that are obviously like old, like against the wall there, don't actually have dates on them, so there's no way to say this is definitely, it's got 18 or it's got 17 written on it. You've got to kind of guess, but I'm guessing those are quite old. And over there I see a distinctive silhouette, so let's just see if this is, yes it is. This is to Able Seaman T. Lamb of the Royal Naval Volunteer Reserve, 22nd of November 1918. Now, when did the First World War end? The 11th of November, so this guy made it just a few days past the end of the war, long enough to see that it was over, and then unfortunately died, aged 36. He is not dead but sleepeth. And behind Able Seaman Lamb there is this one. This is in memory of George Tilford, Master in the Royal Navy, in grateful remembrance of his many valuable qualities as a husband and a parent and a friend and a Christian, who died in 1833, aged 48, and also 2 infant sons. This stone was created by his afflicted widow Margaret Tilford, and then you get some really nice font at the bottom. When from the dust of death I rise to take my mansion in the skies, even then shall this be all my plea, Jesus hath lived and died for me. You walk along and you look down, and on the ground there's another piece of stone that is, yeah, that's a massive grave slab that is getting lost back into the soil. And next to it there's another one, and that's in front of the grave of Davidson LLD, who died in 1858, and under this stone, raised by him to the memory of Lilias Letitia Morrison, his wife, who died in oh god, MD 1518. That's 7. X is 10. What's L? I've no idea. I'm rubbish at this game. MD. So that's 1, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18. See, I wouldn't expect there to be an L there, but I don't know what I'm talking about, so I'll shut up. I've just googled it. I should have known this because, you know, if you have it before, it's like less. So it's 10, 15, 18, and then it's 10 before 50, so it's 1847, I think. That sounds about right, but anyway, it's I can pretend that I knew that and edit it, so I go, oh yes, this who died July 18, but yeah, you probably know that I was making it up. I thought I was getting the grip of my Roman numerals, but the X and the L there threw me, but now I've learnt that. One day I'll be able to read that fluently and you'll believe that I actually know what I'm talking about, but yeah, today is not that day. And that's it for this wee explore. Thank you very much for watching. We now have a Ko-fi page, by the way, so if anybody would like to support the channel by buying me a cup of coffee to make my freezing cold hands not quite so freezing cold, that would be absolutely lovely and greatly appreciated. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you soon for more.